Hello everyone! It's spring. Last week I refilled this palette. It's a regular tin palette with my core watercolors. This palette has done me good. It's the standard tin palette, metal palette. It fits in your palm. I can fit 21 watercolors plus 3 on the side. It has a little bit of mixing area. But this is a tin palette that I use when I don't know if I'm going to do watercolors. Oftentimes, that one is in my bag. It's small, about 1/3 of the size of the regular one, and I fit 4 full pans in it. It's a mint tin. It slips open and you can see full pans. I prefer full pans to half pans. So 4 full pans fit extremely snugly. I still put the magnet, but they don't really need it in this tin because they fit snugly. I have 4 colors. One of them is Daniel Smith. This is the one. It's the only one that dries to the point that it falls out. Everything else, if you touch it, it's slightly tacky, even though they actually don't spill. The only color I have issues with, and this is my full palette of grams, is my cobalt green. Cobalt green is the only color I've had issues with. Everything else, after it has dried after a week or 2, even sideways, they won't spill on me. The 3 colors I use by gram are Bismuth yellow. The second one is Anthraquinone blue, which is probably my favorite blue of all time, and Quinacridone Red. My final color, like I said, is Daniel Smith. It's Quinacridone Gold. I have a few tubes of Quinacridone Gold. I'll admit I have a secret stash I guard zealously. That's all I'll say. When I prep a palette, I just make sure that my pans and the palette itself is clean. And then when I refill my pans, I make sure I push from the bottom of the tube and I flatten it out as much as I can. Then I make sure every single drop is used. It's difficult when you get to the end of a tube because then you're trying to push and squeeze what is at the top of the head, which is very difficult. Sometimes it gets messy and you need to prepare to wash your hands. You didn't see me, but I actually got up and washed my hands when I got some paint on my fingers. As I squeeze the last bit out, I realize there's still a few drops in there. So what I do is I cut the tube up. I always do. I cut up the tubes and then I open it up. Especially with discontinued colors like Quinacridone Gold, I will not leave a drop in the tube. I will make sure I get everything I can. One of the things you didn't see in this video is that actually not only do I go in with a metal knife to get everything I can, I then at the end keep the tube and I transferred whatever I could from the tube with water and I brushed it out and put it on the ceramic palette. That way nothing, absolutely nothing went to waste. So I keep the cut tube in my ceramic palette afterwards. And then I'm very careful to fill out this pan. When I have a piece of dried watercolor that fell out, I keep it on the side. When I fill up the tube with the fresh paint, I then put the dried piece of watercolor upside down because that area is completely flat and it feels a little like bricklaying, where I put it on top and even as it will dry up, it will dry up with a flat top because the bottom of the pan that fell out is not the top. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. Now, I don't know about you, but my yellows sometimes get a little dirty. Before I refill my yellow watercolor pans, I clean them up and if I need to swirl them in water to be able to get them clean, I'll do that. Then I'll refill it with fresh paint. From time to time, you get an issue with tubes and the tops and the caps. And in this case, the cap broke. Basically, you'll see I'm able to fit the edge of the knife in between the very top of the cap and the actual cap. So that means it somehow got broken there and I couldn't close it back. So what I did is I took the used cap from the finished tube of Quinacridone Gold, cleaned it up, and then I used it to close my M-gram tube. The caps are exactly the same size, even though they're not exactly the same model, and they fit in each other. Now with my Quinacridone Red, after cleaning the pan, I clean up whatever is inside it. In this case, there was just a little bit of blue in it, so I cleaned that up. And then I filled it up again. Before I opened it up, I knew it was going to be a little stuck, so I did clean it up with a Q-tip, and then I had no issues opening the tube. In this case, the paint was also extremely smooth and gooey. I don't know what other word to use, liquid. So I usually tap my pans so the air bubbles can escape, and at the same time it flattens the tube up. Sometimes I might use a toothpick or something pointy to move things around, but I don't usually need to do that with M-grams. Just tapping is most of the time enough. Always in between, I make sure I clean up my surface, because sometimes there's paint and then you get paint all over the place, so clean as you go. You can see me pushing the tube, and again I had an issue with the cap. I don't know if there's an issue with M-gram caps, but this is the second one that broke, and this time it completely broke. It didn't just split. That means the paint, which usually is very liquidy, a little like the yellow and the red, couldn't come out without being a little forced, because it had basically half dried in the tube because the cap was broken. In a way, it's a little less messy. Even though it's a little hard to bring it out, you can see how difficult it was pushing and putting leverage with a brush on top of the tube to get everything out. And then an Anthraquinone blue can be very staining. It's a very dark staining color. So I was a little scared to get too much blue all over the place. I tried to be careful. I ended up having to wet my fingers and tap the color in. And then, of course, as always, cleaning up the pan. You have to clean up the pan. Never forget to keep things clean. Now, before everything goes back into the tin, I clean it up. And I'm trying to remember in what order they were, and I can't. So at this point, I'm just trying to decide how it goes. One of the main things I always do is I try to keep my cool yellow as far from the most staining color, so opposite of my blue. It's next to my red and my Quin Gold. That way, there's less chances of getting blue on it. Finally, you can see how much I got out of the tube of Quinacridone Gold. I basically cleaned it up. I took a brush, I scrubbed, and I put the color in one of the wells and let that well dry enough to basically have a nice bit of Quinacridone Gold I'm never going to waste. And then you can see whatever I could push out of the Anthraquinone blue, I put in another well. And I'm keeping that tube until I'm finished with whatever is in the ceramic palette. And when I'm done with the ceramic palette, I will be able to finish whatever I have left over in the tube. Here you can see the two different color wheels I can achieve with the two different yellows, with the bright yellow bismuth yellow and the one with quinacridone gold. And that's the main reason these are the 4 colors I have in my super mini palette. These are the colors I like painting with. I really like the warmth with the quinacridone gold, but with the bismuth yellow I am able to get some really nice vibrant greens, and that's why I have those. Do you have a mini palette or a limited palette? What colors do you use? If you're interested in watching me create my color wheels and explaining why these are the colors that I use, please drop me a comment and I'll work on that. Until next time, take care and have a lovely spring. Ciao!